All right, let's get it.
Hmm.
All right, folks, we talking about why Shane McMahon should take over the WWE as soon as possible, ASAP. We understand how much WWE has been in a bit of a decline, and over consideration who's going to be controlling it over the last pretty much decade. We have over here Destroyer BHB, great channel, go sub, talking about this with me here tonight. What do you think is your takes over with Shane McMahon taking over the WWE?
I mean, if the company wants to stay alive, I think he's really the only option. When you look at Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, which we will talk about, I think that really Shane McMahon is the objectively optimal best option.
He just has more relation over with the business in general. Nobody has as much as connection wise, business wise, and plus it's just the nepotism factor. We understand like NXT. Everybody brings up over NXT. First of all, you guys are getting at least below average ratings than even a lower SmackDown. And SmackDown legit peaks, and they're in a 2 hour shuffle. Raw barely even reaches over a 2.7 or 2.8 unless it's an average night. And like we're talking about a 5 out of 10 Raw. And they're doing this with lack of main eventers. We're imploding like Triple H. Like what part of business history does Triple H other has than wrestling? That's my opinion. He has no business venture. He has no experience over with whatever.
Yeah, I definitely see that. Yeah.
He just doesn't get
I
it.
mean, it's just overall just a couple work rate matches. Yeah, he doesn't. Like I think Raw or really WWE right now they need to build up stars. And when you have Triple H running NXT, you'd think that he'd be the best at it. But no, he hasn't successfully he's hardly successfully built up stars. I think the last one he successfully built up to go to the main roster, well, technically not yet, is Rhea Ripley. But before that, Damian Priest. And then you have guys who are freaking garnered champions in NXT like Finn Balor, who had a record-breaking reign in NXT, destined for success in the main roster just because he's got like 4 kicks, all right, just because of that. And then and then unsurprisingly, he turned out to be an abject failure, only being able to do occasional kicks and no promos, no character, no gimmick. The Demon King is not a gimmick, okay? Everybody sees through face paints and quick head turns, okay, dude?
He doesn't even have a character.
Finn Balor.
What's his character whenever he goes demon?
He's got more of a character. I'll give him this. He got much more of a character now that he's heel. But at the same time, there's still a lot of areas. And the fact that he had to be sent back to NXT to be champion again, despite the fact that he was already a world champion and intercontinental champion, the fact that he had to go, they have a world champion back in developmental shows exactly how much of a failure NXT has been in 2020.
NXT's not a downgrade. It's not a brand. It's a third brand. No, it's not. It's not. Every time I hear like it's not a preview
like,
for
I don't
brand.
Understand the process here.
I just don't understand. Either way,
it's literally a developmental brand. It is literally meant to develop stars.
It's expensive Ring of Honor.
Ugh, dude, I don't understand.
It's expensive Ring of Honor.
Well, okay. I don't know if I go that far
based on the just work rate matches,
just not
a couple
good
squash
stuff.
matches, simplistic ass storylines that can't push over the ladder. Like, what's the only big
at least NXT has some stars with. At least NXT's got some stars with potential. Okay,
they
Ring
don't
of Honor
like
is
guys
just
that look like stars.
They
don't like guys who look like stars. That's the issue.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
they did well with Damian Priest and Keith Lee. I thought
Keith Lee is looking good, but he's getting
Cross is being booked pretty fairly right now.
Karrion Kross, that guy should be holding the NXT title for 5
He just had a WWE title match.
Oh man, but I just feel like he's just getting undervalued.
I'd say they book Cross. They book Cross fine so far. They do literally just beat a champion in NXT.
Okay,
I think that's pretty good. But at the same time, why? Oh, does anybody think that Finn Balor is going to defeat Karrion Kross?
I don't know.
In a match in NXT, does anybody see that as possible? They had him. Here's how illegitimate NXT is. They had Finn Balor pin Keith Lee and Matt Riddle clean.
Oh my
Like, look
God.
at Matt Riddle. He could beat your ass. Look at the UFC stuff. And Keith Lee, why is he even in a match against freaking Finn Balor? He makes him look like a freaking jobber. Look at Keith. Okay, I know Keith Lee doesn't exactly rip head to toe, but he's got like fat muscle. When he flexes, you can see that there's muscle there.
It's like 50% fat, 50% muscle. I mean, the guy is athletic, but he got to chill with the athletic stuff. He can do power moves. He
did like somersault in his head.
He can do pounces. He can do a bit, but you leave that stuff for the special events. I don't want to see that weekly. He has good matches on Raw, but he has no character in the centralized part of it. It's ruining most of his mystique, and it just like, okay, how are you limitless other than what you can do in the ring? But let's go back over the topic of Shane.
He just doesn't have promo skills.
Shane's already an experienced entrepreneur. And that comes over with already, like, history over with a billionaire. Triple H doesn't have that thing other than centralized primarily on wrestling. All he's focusing on is wrestling. Like, he doesn't want to think of nuanced stuff that's going to get in a different demographic. He's not focusing on what sells. Shane, at least, Raw Underground was at least an interesting concept. What they bring back, War Games? No one cares about War Games. No, dude, it's just 1920s Elimination Chamber, but they never put the championship on the line. There's like no centralized story other than like what WCW used to do with the War Games concept, and it just sells over because we know that the baby faces are gonna win, or the heels are just gonna look strong whenever it's a new heel group, and they primarily have just Undisputed Era doing it because they think like Undisputed Era is like the best thing ever for some apparent reason. And they're just
like, and the thing about Shane. The thing about Shane I want to talk about is he's got business in his blood. All right, look at Vince McMahon has done some of the most successful deals as of late. He literally in a company that's far past his prime. He literally sold a deal, had $1 billion deal in 2021. It was 2021. I want to say, but at the same time, Shane has that in his blood. Yeah, okay, he's got that in him. It's literally from birth that he has that same stuff. He's destined to be to rule WWE because he knows how to make those big money transactions. And when you look at Triple H, NXT has become a money pit, and Shane knows how to make big. He knows how to make big stars. All right, back in the freaking Attitude Era,
it declined.
You didn't have to make him. You didn't have to put a world title. You didn't have to put a freaking world title on him in the Attitude Era to still come up as a big star. Remember, like the biggest title this guy held was it like the European Championship. And he was still like among the big stars of like the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Triple H had this is ruthless aggression. He had to freaking give himself like 900-day title reigns or some crap like that because literally he didn't want to give any other main eventer freaking spotlight, despite the fact that Orton, when he won it, he was relatively fresh, and then Triple H won it. Remember, because freaking Orton faced won it. I'm just gonna say he won at SummerSlam 2004.
Yeah.
And he was doing good. He had a really good promo. Like on a Raw, and then Triple H literally won it back in the next pay-per-view and held it freaking all the way until like, what, WrestleMania? Like, it's not fair.
I mean, it's not fair, but you gotta look at what you gotta look at the more logical suit. Like, most of the guys weren't that established or weren't in the suit that they looked like, at least in the main event level for Triple H. And at least some of the guys that he dropped it to were guys that were fan favorites anyway. He already lost the World Heavyweight title after it just got introduced. Literally in just a month, like 2 months, he held it. He lost it at the Chamber match at Survivor Series. Gave it to Shawn Michaels, best Chamber match ever. Then he dropped it to Chris Benoit back at Mania. He had a cool storyline over with Goldberg, even how short it was. I mean, he gave Orton already some spotlight already, giving him a bit of legitimacy, and plus he made Batista into one of the biggest stars next to John Cena over the Ruthless Aggression era. So
that's true.
I mean, I obviously don't feel like Booker T could have gotten at least one short-term title reign out of it, but you gotta make sure WWE has a heel that's going to be the most deserved to lose, and you got to make sure the heel looks most desired to lose. That's what I'm losing faith in most of what's going on. Triple H makes himself a good heel. He's not a good executive over to make business decisions. That's why I don't feel like he should be owning any part of the WWE. And the only people who feel about this is freaking what culture, fathead English retard smarks that think that 2016 was a boom period for British wrestling, when the only notoriety that you guys have is currently the British Bulldog, Dynamite Kid breaking his neck, and NXT UK. How can you be happy for a European developmental branch? That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. That's the dumbest thing. Finn Balor, a Euro guy, can't even.
It's literally just guys fighting for no reason.
It's just not good. It's not a good business.
They rarely have title defenses over there. In NXT recently they had their first title change in like 500 days. That shows how little you should care about NXT. The UK, they just had a title match, and then that only then is a change.
Walter looks like a fat baby, bro.
Okay, Walter I feel is not bad. Because this dude actually, but the thing is, he's got an old school feel to him. Even with the baby look, he still feels old school. That's what I like about him. But really, but back to my point about Triple H. Triple H always gave himself world title. He was consistently world champion in like the Attitude Era and Ruthless Aggression Era. And when he wasn't, he was holding up to like some other title, like the freaking IC title or something like that. Shane didn't need a world title to get himself over. Shane knows how to build a star, and he did. He applied those principles to himself when he was jumping up. Like, he was doing big moments, and that's what's cool about the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression. Full of big moments, and Shane gets that. Triple H thinks it's just about like some freaking indie match that he brought up from PWG. No, Shane understands that big moments give big money, and because the big ratings are popping in the big views. That's what is so good about Shane McMahon. That's why he needs to take the WWE over. He's one of the only few people who understands that the importance of having stunning segments and having true wrestling surprises makes wrestling wrestling. That's what it made. That's what made it in the first place. That's what made WWF beat WCW in the wars, because of the big moments they had. It wasn't because of some freaking 30-minute long tag match with jobbers you don't care about. I mean, it was specifically because of big moments, and that Shane was part of that. He was part of those big moments.
I mean, you look what they did. Shane, while he had like cool matches in Survivor Series 2016-17, I think he was in 18. Hell in a Cell match he had over with The Undertaker, with the coolest moment being jumping over the cell. Triple H, was he booking himself over to a corner, doing a 4-way Iron Man match for NXT, and they got the lowest rated segment over on lowest rated match over in the show. That is like work rate.
Yeah, and then of course they had a tie. They had a tie for whoever wins opens the show next week. Like,
that is dumb. That's
not how you write a show.
That is dumb booking strategy.
And look, I know Vince McMahon's a legend, but he's clearly not admitting his best work now. Like, look at Raw. All right,
Raw.
Like, Vince McMahon's a legend, but at the end of the day, you can only get so old before you eventually your ideas start to wear off. Shane right now he's not that old. He's like. What is he, like in his 40s?
They need to add more cinematography into the show. I don't know why is that so hard. Implement more of the camera angles in to distinguish more of your matches. Stop making this feel like a freaking sport. It's not, and we all know that. Make this more drama filtered. You got a cool concept like the Hurt Business, whatever the Fiend's doing with Randy Orton. You can make it look adult, but still keep it safe. There's nothing wrong with that. The brand split's already killing over what makes Raw and SmackDown cool. You can make SmackDown a good B show and make Raw just a main show where all the main stars are, while you focus on the mid-carders on the B show. I don't know why people don't get that. Y'all some SJWs forever, whoever thinks that, getting 2 world championships will always devalue one of the two. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. Like, I want to also mention the terminology sports entertainment. We don't like Raw because it's not good. We like Raw because it's actively bad, and there are simple steps that can freaking take it to actually mediocre level, which would be fine. You don't like the work rate? The thing that made the sports entertainment is that it was half sports, half entertainment. Like in the Ruthless Aggression era, you had these consistently good matches. You had great men's wrestling. Of course, women's wrestling was meant to turn people on, but enough of that. You had great workers who still looked like stars. You had like Chris Benoit. He wasn't even that heavy, but he looked like he could beat freaking. He looked like he totally kick your ass. They had like Rey Mysterio, who they just supported in. They had Eddie Guerrero. They had who else they had? Oh, the world's greatest tag team. The guys who absolutely look shredded to the core. And they had all sorts of good like matches. And of course, Brock Lesnar, Undertaker. The Rock, those guys were main eventing. And on the entertainment side, you had these consistently good entertainment segments. Like Kurt Angle was just so good, dude. Like I don't think people talk about enough how he's virtually perfect, because not only did he have good matches, he also had just brilliantly funny freaking segments.
They don't have all around guys like Kurt Angle anymore. That's the sad part. And when you
Yeah,
are
they
naming
don't.
right there, most of these guys were Attitude Era or mid-carders from Attitude Era or mid-carders. Some guys like Eddie Guerrero became main eventers. And it's the saddest part of all. There's no adaptation anymore for stuff like this because Triple H doesn't know how to actually build stars to actually make convincing ways that, oh wait, they're getting more popular by the second. Let's try to make their character more cooler and bring them over to the main event. That's what made Eddie Guerrero just from like the random playboy to like the relatable short. It was a bit of a racist stereotypical character, but it was over. He had a magnetic charisma with most of his stealing and cheating. His matches had to be entertaining. They've not always been work rate.
Yeah.
Because you remember they weren't. It's not because the work rate made it a great match. It's because of the creative ways he tried to get himself out of tough situations and pick up the win. And we don't get that anymore. And plus, the roster is already thin as it is.
You also had John Cena doing the rap thing.
Yeah. By the way,
like, at the time, John Cena wasn't like he was like green in the ring, but at the same time, this dude was constantly emitting fresh rap segments.
Yeah. And
that's really cool to get someone to like get a freaking younger audience in. Nowadays, it's just fucking like okay, it's just fart jokes. It's just or silly other dumb things that are cringe.
Oh,
and that's about Triple H and what he's doing wrong. But let's look about the worst possibility for taking over, which is objectively Stephanie McMahon. Oh my goodness.
Oh no, please God.
That's so much worse. Okay, let's just talk about what freaking Stephanie did in the last few years. Let's talk about what Stephanie did. She oversaturated wrestling to the point where it has to favor women over men.
Oh my God.
She booked the overly dominant superstar as the man, which implies that just because she calls herself the man, she's automatically more valuable and therefore better than every other women's wrestler on the roster, defeating the whole purpose of the women's revolution to begin with, which is flawed to the fundamental core. She's pushed Bayley and Bayley's not exactly the worst wrestler, but when you have like a 400-day,
she gets you the lowest ratings on the main events. Last year they were getting the lowest ratings.
You don't push them to the main event over matches that are more established.
These women are
like I don't understand.
Lita and Trish Stratus.
I don't understand. You know what? You had better options for main eventing WrestleMania 35. Let's talk about that. And instead you go with the botch-filled. You know that botch-filled match with a roll-up. That Ronda wasn't even pinned. Okay, Ronda was one of the last true. She was one of the last true stars in women's wrestling because she had decent matches. She did, and she pulled up. She surprised everybody. She did. She was.
I don't know why.
She did. She cut up big, and Becky Lynch. Oh, when the man comes around, or some other garbage promo that goes with the same 9 words, the same thing against the same people. Becky Lynch is among the worst women's wrestlers. And I don't really understand. Well, today she's one of the worst main eventers of all time because when she won the title, the ratings went down. Like I know the ratings aren't exactly going up, but they went sporadically down when she was the champion. And it's because the oversaturation of women's wrestling does not translate to family friendly. Family friendly is not just about gender equality, which I know WWE is trying to go for. But at the same time, gender equality is not attained by putting women in the main event of everything. It's attained by putting real stars, in the main event of wrestling. Now, I could say you have some, if you really need to for weekly shows, absolutely have some built-up women's match on the main event.
Don't just make it a women's match.
Please, story.
Please, a story.
It's exactly. Stephanie thinks that just she can use the feminist line to therefore promote every match to be a main event when really, no, you can't do that. You really can't do that. And Shane gets the story build. Maybe Shane isn't exactly the best with storytelling, but he could at least build a match up decently with segments, strong segments. The story might not be that good, but the segments, like the moments, can create hype for the match, even if it's not super storied. Stephanie McMahon praises a match just because it's got a woman in it. I really don't understand the fact that I don't understand the fact that in any inept situation that Stephanie McMahon would be the best option to take over. She's objectively in the worst. At least Triple H has good matches, even if not segments or stories. At least that Stephanie she pushes the wrong woman to the main event, and when she does push someone who's got decent talent, Asuka, she overbooks her to the point where it's ridiculous. Look at her defenses, dude. Consistently winning in ridiculous circumstances despite being on a freaking undefeated streak that literally topped Goldberg's. And at least you bought into that in NXT. I don't agree with it being longer than Goldberg's, but at least you bought into it because she looks strong. But on the main roster, somehow she's consistently I don't understand. I really don't understand how you can mess up someone because she can only win if there's an injury in the same night. What happened to Charlotte Flair? A referee screw job. What happened with Nia Jax? Or literally people RKO her opponents until they can't compete, and then she gets a lousy freaking win. Randy Orton with the Alexa Bliss stuff. That's her defenses. It just doesn't make any sense. Even if you do push women, if you do push a woman, at least book it appropriately. Asuka's been genuinely booked like trash. She's been booked like trash, but she has talent. She does have charisma.
No, they hate
her screaming in Japanese. Her screaming in Japanese is more entertaining than 90% of the indie work rate promos today.
I mean, I don't like what they're doing over. They ruin characters. I don't know why this feminist agenda has to be booked over to oblivion. No one cares that you're a woman. That means Vince Russo had to help women that were just being used for random eye candy get over. He brought back the women's championship for you losers. He brought back way more legitimacy than what's going on right now. You at least remember Molly Holly, Beth Phoenix, Tori Wilson, Stacy Keibler, Kelly, Lita, Trish Stratus.
Kelly actually was a very decent worker.
Sable was the second drawing character on the Attitude Era. So there's a point. There's a point to all of this. What's going on right now? We're getting lowest rated segments. We're getting lowest ratings in general because we're primarily Charlotte versus Sasha Banks was main eventing Raw back in 2016, where we started getting ones on Monday Night Raw. The kickoff of how we were declining in viewership because of the oversaturation of the women's division. At
least the matches were fine.
Some of the matches were fine. I'm not going to denounce that, but when they just have no
story, the matches weren't exactly classics.
They're not classics, but they were good. But they just had no centralized story around them, and most of them, whenever they came, they're embarrassing. It's like we had This Is the Life segment with Alexa Bliss and Bayley. We had the crappy little storyline that Ruby Riott was doing with Natalya. That thing insulting her dead dad and trying to make a personal storyline that only lasted for a freaking month. We had this bashed out Charlotte storyline that now got spanked because Lacey Evans is legit pregnant because Ric Flair can't get his wrinkled dick out of her and he just couldn't pull out. It just god damn. And then they even made their own pay-per-view. My live reaction to that pay-per-view got more views than the actual draw that it had.
Yeah.
You bringing back wrinkled women with no central storylines involved with it just to push a narrative that women's wrestling exists is dumb because women's wrestling been existed. It makes no sense. Just make characters. What's Charlotte? She's Ric Flair. What's Bayley? Just a hugger. And now I don't even get her heelish character right now where she oozes no character involvement, no actual. It's just she looks like that chick from
it just doesn't make sense that they would intentionally. It just doesn't make sense that they would intentionally push women until the company fades into obscurity. I don't understand why Becky Lynch has to do I don't understand what the deal with is with Becky Lynch, and then they implied that with freaking she is awful. They gave her the man just because she wrestled. She started off good when she was a heel. I can at least say that. She started off good as a heel, but she cannot play the face for the like of her.
Wait, hold up. Let me go over that heel thing real quick. She was only heel for a month. She only turned heel because
exactly
she lost to Charlotte.
Even that, She didn't play that bad.
All she did
Yeah.
was insult Edge's neck injury. That was it, and then they turned her automatically babyface because Nia Jax punched her in the face. She oozes no charisma. Most of her stuff's because of her she-male
no
husband.
Charisma.
Like, and no character depth. Like, you being undervalued over the company is not.
Can we talk about this?
Yeah, what is it?
I slant indie wrestlers, but at least they have a style of wrestling, like high flying, like strength,
I think
like technical game. What style does Becky Lynch have?
I think
she has a drop kick where she falls like a rock.
Oh, dude.
She has a suplex done garbage. She has a freaking submission that looks like it looks like an untrained chimpanzee can do better.
Like
and I don't understand what the deal is with Becky Lynch. Like, oh my god, dude.
Oh, man.
And if she comes back, I'm not saying she will, but if she decides to, they're gonna immediately scrap all the plans and say, let's put Becky Lynch at the freaking main event again so that she favors men who are clearly more talented. Not trying to be sexist, but there are plenty of talented men who got freaking sidelined for Becky Lynch, and then because their main event plans were faded, they just faded away because they had to suddenly push Becky Lynch. Like Drew McIntyre. Okay, obviously he's getting his face right now, but I would have much preferred like a heel push instead of a face push. Honestly, that's just my opinion.
Got ruined.
And he was supposed to get that in 2019. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, and he beat Kurt Angle.
And then he just. I don't understand I
don't know why. And
yes, exactly.
I just don't. How do you even display a wrestler like Becky Lynch to your friends? Or people that just want to start watching wrestling, and then you have to be, Charlotte, this tall lady over here. Okay, this is the daughter of Ric Flair. She's already super accomplished in the business. Nia Jax, just this big woman that's related to The Rock. She's supposed to be this like female Umaga.
Nia is garbage.
Nia is garbage. She's a she-male Umaga. She ate 3-minute warning. I swear to God. Jacob fought.
Yep.
Jacob Fatu can dress up and drag and look better than her. Freaking Nyla Rose looks better than her. And that's a dude. I don't care, dude. That's a dude. I can't identify anything with Charlotte other than she's this ginger.
I just don't get it.
She has no assets. She is ginger, and she calls herself the man because she's built like a man. She has no ass or tits, and she comes around. She looks like a nice lady. I'm not
definitely has no assets.
But she's a nice lady.
She probably is a very nice person in real life, but at the same time,
you're not gonna.
I just don't see it. She has no character.
You're not Austin level.
Yeah, and that's why.
God damn.
That's why I think Shane. That's why I think we think Shane that should do it. He's not gonna favor someone just because they have a gender that's different. You're gonna favor someone because they have talent, they have charisma, and they can wrestle a match that looks believable. And so let's probably conclude on this note. Shane McMahon, without a doubt, should be the one after Vince McMahon is done. I think he should be the one to take over WWE to fill those shoes. What do you think?
I think you're absolutely right. I just feel like he's not about pushing over a narrative. He's trying to make new, safer concepts that are going to be making at least some kind of outlook. He already has experience over in the business, already as an entrepreneur, already has much connections over his disposal in the company, and he's just more... he just has this in his blood, so I just feel like we're just going to cap it off with that. Anything else? I think we've touched all the subjects.
Yeah, and that's really it for me, man. We touched just about everything we could. Yeah.
Yeah, other than burying most of the roster, I think we should do that. Other than that, it was just
we could.
Yeah. This is most of what we got here. Tell us how you feel in the comment section below. Who you think should be running the company, if it should be Shane or Triple H or anybody else in the circle of around Vince McMahon right now. We're talking about even Bruce Pritchard or Paul Heyman. Other than that, thanks for Destroyer BHB for being here. Like, comment, subscribe. This is a great topic. Thanks.